When 36 deadly villains all wish to claim the head of Spider-Man at the behest of Kindred, has the web-slinger finally met his match? Well, let's hop into the pages of Sinister War issue number 4, the big finale of this tie-in series, and find out together, shall we? So then, as we open up the comic, stop me if you've heard this one before, but Spider-Man is running from a graveyard as a bunch of villains try and kick his ass. I know that might sound familiar because it's basically what this entire book has been up until this point. In the last issue, a brand new 6th and final incarnation of the Sinister Six had joined the field, this time led by the Sin Eater. It's at this point even Spider-Man himself has to get a little metatextual in his internal monologue, saying, man, Kindred really pulled out the stops here when it comes to deep cuts, am I right? I mean, come on, Grey Gargoyle, Living Laser, who could possibly remember that I ever fought them? I sure don't. Also, despite Sin Eater actually being such a major focal point of this Nick Spencer run and having a big deal being made of him getting resurrected at the end of the previous issue, he actually gets defeated super easily. He and Spider-Man have themselves a little Wild West showdown, and Spider-Man ends up gumming up the guy's shotgun with a web blast. Really, it was just that easy to take him down this whole time? Of course, that's just one down and many, many more to go. Spider-Man tries to move the fight away from populated areas so civilians won't get drug into this. Kindred is also pretty furious about this turn of events. He had put all of this in motion, all of these different villains, friend turned foe, foe turned friend, all in hopes of giving Spider-Man that last great battle, that hero's death, but now he just seems to be running away from the whole thing. Now it's Morlun, arguably the last big new original Spider-Man villain, that gets the drop on the webhead and tries to eat his soul, as is kind of his modus operandi. Spider-Man had a lot of trouble beating this guy just on his own, forget about getting worn down by all the other villains. It's at this moment, though, a very unlikely hero ends up emerging. Boomerang actively goes to take the hit for Spider-Man, in doing so sacrificing his own life, and I mean, yeah, I guess that's kind of where Fred Meyer's story was going. After betraying both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, he needed to redeem himself somewhere, so why not here and now? Also, despite how hurt Spider-Man was at Boomerang's betrayal, he's even more enraged now at his death, showing that deep down they were actually friends. Boomerang's death also ends up sending shockwaves throughout the superior foes, who figure that if Boomerang can die here, that means that Kindred really doesn't care about any of them, and even if they do manage to bring down Spider-Man, there's no promise Kindred won't just kill them all anyway. Oh, and Beetle also ends up turning on the Syndicate and rejoining her friends, but you know, it's a blink and you'll miss it moment. With some actual real enforcements now, Spider-Man is able to stand his ground and take the fight to the rest of the villains. He's not unsympathetic to their plight. After all, Kindred has essentially promised them the world and redemption for their dark, corrupted, sinful souls. In the end, though, it's ultimately not Spider-Man who defeats this assembled group of sinister villains. It's actually Doc Ock who decides that, you know what, he is no man's slave, no man's servant, and he's gonna take the fight to Kindred himself by destroying those centipedes that are in everyone's brains. The way Otto goes about this is actually pretty clever, too. He takes some technology from Black Ant's helmet, figuring that if he can use that to control ants, then he could probably fine-tune it to control centipedes, which he does. At first, Spider-Man is all happy, thinking that Dr. Octopus has actually seen the error of his ways yet again, and perhaps can even be superior again, but no, that's not the case. Ock says that he did this for himself, not for Peter or any idea of heroism. If anything, Doc Ock is extra pissed off now that Spider-Man made him burn his only bridge in discovering the answers to the questions that are still in his mind following his turn over from Superior Spider-Man back to Doc Ock. So yeah, with a little help from his friends and his enemies alike, Spider-Man is able to win the day, and now he's finally ready for his ultimate confrontation with Kindred, the puppet master behind all these events. But is he really the puppet master, though? For you see, it's after that we transition on over to Mephisto's hellish casino, where we see that the Devil Stand-In and Doctor Strange have actually been playing their little casino games this whole time, with Spider-Man and the Sinister Sixes making up the game pieces on the board. Strange won, which by extension means that Spider-Man won, or maybe it's the other way around. Though Mephisto says he's confident that Spider-Man will end up losing the next hand, as like all bad gamblers, he doesn't know when to walk away from the table. And so that was Sinister War issue number 4, everybody, and ultimately this one felt a little odd, kind of like it was rushed, like there was meant to be 2 more parts from this that just didn't materialize. Essentially, all you really needed to read from Sinister War to understand what was going on in Amazing Spider-Man was this final issue and the first issue. The middle parts, well, they were just kind of a lot of nothing, weren't they? Don't get me wrong, Spider-Man fighting fighting 6 incarnations of the Sinister Six is a super cool idea, but it all just sort of devolved into a big fracas, didn't it, with no one really getting a chance to grow or change as characters. Well, except for maybe Boomerang and Doc Ock, but even still, their turns happened very quickly with very little build-up, didn't they? I appreciate that Boomerang's story has a beginning, middle, and end, but boy, he sure did get involved really quick, didn't he? Likewise, Doc Ock's turn makes a lot of sense and is very cool, but at the same time, I feel like there's something missing in the build-up to it. Also, the whole Sinister War aspect of the Sinister War storyline really ended up just kind of being a minor roadblock for Spider-Man to overcome on his way to fight Kindred. They weren't as involved in the story as the title might lead you to believe. Overall, though, I didn't hate this. I certainly wasn't bored. I just wish there was a little more meat and potatoes on this one. Overall, I'd give this one a 6 out of 10, which is probably the most fitting score I could give it, right?
Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.